Does Marvel's next Spider-Man movie, being called Brand New Day, mean anything in the context of what that comic is and what this story might be? Probably not. But if it does, this opens up a lot of interesting possibilities. I want to talk about them. Also, of course, I got Mortimer on my lap. I don't know if you can tell. I haven't done one of these in a while. Imagine some of you could kind of hear. I've been sick for the last couple days, but we're back at it because I have to talk about the Spider-Man Brand New Day movie title review at CinemaCon, I believe, as part of the Sony presentation. And I want to talk about what that comic is and what that can mean for this movie. And this is all, again, preface on the fact that there's a very good chance that Brand New Day is just a name. The same way that Homecoming was just a name that signified like, hey, Spider-Man's back in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, back where he belongs. He has his homecoming now. The same way Daredevil Born Again is based off of a very popular Daredevil comic, but the series itself does not have much of a connection, besides the fact that Born Again is like, oh, this character is reborn now. He's in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're rebooting this show, kind of. So that very well could be what Brand New Day is, which is the idea of like, the fresh start, you know, Spider-Man taking another shot. And it's the end of the Home trilogy, Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home. You've got this new trilogy, this fresh start, so it's called Brand New Day. That is very likely what is going on. However, there are some things that do kind of line up with other things we do know about this movie now, and I want to talk about them. All right, real quick for people who don't know. Spider-Man Brand New Day was an event. I don't know if you call it an event. Usually an event is like the big god from the multiverse is here to kill everybody, you know, and everybody from all the books has team up. This is an arc, I guess, of Spider-Man's, although it feels like an event because it was so big. It was bigger than just your normal arc of like, oh, now Spider-Man's going to fight Dr. Octopus. Because what happened was, you guys know Civil War. The superheroes are fighting each other because of registration. Now, in the middle of that, for what is conceivably no reason, because this is not what he needs to do, but it's, I guess, kind of a show of good faith. Spider-Man publicly unmasks himself, comes out, says, I'm Peter Parker, and then the event continues. So Spider-Man is vulnerable in a way that he usually is not. Someone, I can't remember who, attempts to kill Spider-Man, accidentally kills Aunt May. And very important, at this point in the comics, Spider-Man and Mary Jane were married. This was a big deal. Obviously, they're one of the most important pairings in Marvel Comics. Fans love them. So when Aunt May died, we got a panel I'm sure many of you have seen before, where Spider-Man and Mary Jane made a deal with Mephisto, the devil, to make people forget that Spider-Man was Spider-Man and to bring back Aunt May. And what did Mephisto want in return? He wanted their marriage. And then cut to Spider-Man wakes up and now he's single and he's got new friends, including people that came back from the dead. And Aunt May is obviously alive, and MJ is nowhere to be found. And there's a lot of other stuff which we'll talk about. For people that are kind of confused, why is this event so infamous? There's resets all the time. Obviously, lots of people will get cloned and come back and stuff like that. So, like, that is true. But I think it was annoying for Spider-Man fans because, especially in my lifetime, especially as maybe a result of the Raimi movies, I don't know, their popularity definitely defined how a lot of people see this character. Spider-Man could never get what he wanted. He could never move forward. He was in the state of arrested development. This is something we see a lot now. It's part of what people don't like about Paul. And if you want to get more information about that, Alex Lennon made a video called Spider-Man vs. Paul. Why are fans so mad? There's a great video that explains the whole thing, because obviously there's like misogyny and things like that there. But I do think Paul's like emblematic of a bigger issue with Spider-Man. And I think One More Day, for me, was the first time I saw this happen. Now, I wasn't reading Spider-Man comics at the time, but I always heard about this, right? And that is kind of what Spider-Man No Way Home is based on. Spider-Man gets his identity made public. Peter Parker is Spider-Man, causes a lot of chaos. He makes a wish. There are consequences, and then things get reset afterwards. Now, obviously, no Mephisto. Instead, it's Strange and all the multiverse stuff, which is not part of One More Day. Also, if I call it One Day More, it's because I was a theater kid around the same time I was a comics kid, and the Les Mis song just kind of, syncs up. So, One Day More. That's the event with Mephisto. I Want Your Marriage. Brand New Day follows One Day More, and this is like this alternate reality where everything's been reset in Spider-Man's life. There's new people there. Some old people are gone. Like I said, people that were dead are back. We're also going to get introduced to brand new characters, new villains, people you're probably familiar with, names you've heard if you're somewhat connected to Spider-Man comics, especially if you play the Insomniac Spider-Man games, because a lot of these characters show up there too, play a big role. So Brand New Day is the beginning of this era for Spider-Man. And there a lot of different things happened around this time. This is when Anti-Venom happens. We're in the Dark Reign Thunderbolts era. Spider Island is going to come shortly after this starts. All that, very fun. But I want to focus on a couple of characters, because the idea that this movie is called Spider-Man Brand New Day, like, sure, Brand New Day is a good title for a movie kind of resetting Spider-Man. But also, if you are resetting Spider-Man, what is this movie going to do with that? What is the purpose, right? What kind of story are we going to tell? And I think a lot of the things that happen in Brand New Day, a lot of the characters that show up in Brand New Day make sense now. Also, this Spider-Man movie is going to come out between Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret War. Now, this is mostly speculative in terms of like what will happen in these movies, but if you know the Secret War comics, then you're kind of familiar with the idea of Doctor Doom reshaping the multiverse. I would say this should feel a little bit more like House of M, which is what, for me, this movie could feel like, which in House of M, Wanda rewrites reality so there's no more mutants, but also she puts all of the heroes into like a different reality where some of them start to notice that things aren't quite right, and some of them have lives that seem to exist to kind of pacify them and make it so that they don't ruin things. Something very similar happened in the Ultimate Universe recently, where Reed Richards, the evil one, the maker, went back in time, or went to the earlier points in a different universe and took away things like the spider and changed some of these events that would turn people into heroes. So then you had characters like Peter Parker, who grew up his whole life, like had, a son and a daughter with Mary Jane, was living a normal life, had no connection to Spider-Man. So then Iron Man shows up and he's like, hey, you should be Spider-Man. And then, the story starts. The Jason Aaron Heroes Reborn run. Also this, right? Stories where an antagonist reshapes reality, gives everybody a perfect version of their life, but that takes away something so that they won't get in the way of the villain, as a way to force the character to choose again to become this hero, rediscover why he loves to be Spider-Man and give up something really important. Let him see that perfect life that he always wanted but never could get. That makes complete sense in between a movie that ends probably with Doctor Doom getting the power to reshape reality, and then the next movie will begin with Doctor Doom having reshaped reality. So like this movie will take place in the space between that. So this movie will take place in that reshaped reality. So, okay, let's just say Doctor Doom gives Spider-Man his perfect Peter Parker life. Maybe it just is he's still Spider-Man, but he is not Spider-Man the way that we know him. Like something is different. Maybe he works for Doctor Doom, and he is cool with that, and he likes that. Kind of like the new One World Under Doom comics that Marvel is doing. Maybe characters that died, like Aunt May, come back. Maybe Uncle Ben comes back, and we see what that was like. We never met Uncle Ben in these, but maybe he's back. I remember we saw one picture of him in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Kind of, maybe it looks like a Brendan Fraser type. I don't know. I mean, it should be George Costanza, because George Costanza and Marissa Tomei are a couple in a couple episodes of Seinfeld. Not a couple, but if you watch Seinfeld, you understand. Anyway, it should also be Joe Pesci because of My Cousin Vinny. That would also be very funny. Either way, a cantankerous small man from New York is perfect. But if not that, maybe Brendan Fraser. But either way, let's say that in the movie Brand New Day, Spider-Man wakes up and we are introduced to Spider-Man's life. And this is the life Spider-Man is familiar with. This is not like Spider-Man waking up going, who are you? Who are you? Like Spider-Man knows all this. But then as the movie goes on, we start realizing, Peter starts realizing like something's off, like something's wrong. Not necessarily like this world is fake or something, but like I'm missing something. And maybe that ends up being actual MJ, played by Zendaya, as opposed to perhaps a Mary Jane that exists in this universe. Like, that could totally be this movie. Now, why do I bring all this up? Kind of justify me talking about characters that show up in Brand New Day. These are characters that are introduced or reintroduced in Brand New Day that I think it would make a lot of sense if some of them showed up in this movie. First one, very important. This is a character that is so complicated and is only made more complicated by recent comic developments, but I'm just going to go with the simple version. Jackpot. So in Spider-Man Brand New Day, he's off doing Spider-Man stuff, and he sees this new superhero named Jackpot, and she's got red hair, and she appears to be the same age as Mary Jane, and Jackpot is like a line that Mary Jane said. She's like, face it, tiger, you hit the jackpot. So it's like, hey, who is this character? Is this Mary Jane? Is that how the world reset her? Now, it turns out to not be Mary Jane. Original Jackpot is very confusing. There's a new version of Jackpot that is Mary Jane, but like, what if this movie starts and Spider-Man has a relationship with a superhero named Jackpot, who happens to be named Mary Jane and is filling the same role that MJ used to fill, but Spider-Man can tell something's weird here. And I'm only thinking about like the women in the movie for now, because Sadie Sink is confirmed to be in this, but we still don't know what character she's playing. Now, there are a lot of characters she could be that don't have any connection to Brand New Day. Felicia Hardy is one, Black Cat. Totally could be her. Angelica, Firestar. That would make complete sense. Have her be Firestar and do a Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends movie. But there are also a lot of women that are introduced in Brand New Day specifically that could kind of work. So like, for example, Jackpot. And hey, if we want to do a thing where now we have a more traditional Mary Jane by casting a white redheaded actor, then Sadie Sink would be perfect for that. I will say one thing about Sadie Sink that's a little tricky. She's 22, Tom Holland is 28 as of right now. That's a little young for him. They're both pretty good at playing much younger. Spider-Man No Way Home ends with a senior year Peter Parker, and obviously Sadie Sink is going to be in, I would assume, still high school in the new seasons of Stranger Things. So like, they can both conceivably play that. But that's my only thing that makes me go like, maybe this is not a romantic relationship that we're going to be setting up. But either way, maybe it's Jackpot. Also, Jackpot's power is just really plain, can, punch and run at super speeds and stuff. In recent comics, Paul, a character I'm not going to get into and will not come up in this. I mean, I already mentioned him when I was talking about that one video, but Paul makes a suit that gives MJ a little slot machine that lets her get random superpowers, kind of like the arm that Jinx makes in the second season of Arcane for that other character. It's a dumb power. It's like, oh, you want to be casino themed because your name is Jackpot? And it's like, no, just give her something else. Give her a simpler power, because A, this is not that exciting for us, the audience, to see, unless this is going to be a screwball comedy where like she always gets the wrong power, but that's not how they write Jackpot. Anyway, I don't know. Jackpot's not anybody's favorite character. Let's talk about a character that's nobody's favorite character except mine. Now, it's just my favorite character, but another character that's introduced in Brand New Day is named Screwball. Now, she is a live streamer villain who does really cool, sick parkour, which was a thing in the 2010s whenever this came out, and live streams her crimes for her fans. I think this character is incredibly irritating. That's the vibe everybody gets from her. I find that kind of funny. I love a good love to hate character. And making Sadie Sink Screwball would be really weird. It feels like it would be a waste of this, very popular young actor playing a character that really nobody but me likes. But I do think the idea of a live streaming supervillain, like an influencer supervillain, what it kind of did with Titania and She-Hulk, like, I think there's something interesting there. And I liked what they did with Titania. I could see a version of Screwball playing well in some sort of Spider-Man show or whatever. Probably not this. Two women are introduced in Brand New Day that are roommates and friends of Peter's. One at the time is dating Harry Osborn, who is back from the dead. And this is another thing. Brand New Day introduces Harry Osborn back into the Spider-Man friend community. They could totally use this as an opportunity to just be like, Spider-Man wakes up and gets a call from his good friend Harry Osborn. We cast a new Harry Osborn. We do all that. It could be like an actor that is similar to the Harry Osborn from the show, because he's fine. I really like the Coleman Domingo Green Goblin. Would love to bring him into live action. But so one of the women's name is Lily Hollister. She's dating Harry. Ends up, spoiler alert for this book, and a character arc that isn't that great, being a villain called Menace, who's another goblin villain. I don't think we would do Menace, but that, you could. The other woman who has way more staying power, character named Carly Cooper. Now, she does not, I would say, look like Sadie Sink. Like, she's not a redhead or anything. But she is like a normal human. She is not a superhero. She does get spider powers during Spider Island whenever he gets spider powers. But more or less, she's just a woman who Peter Parker dates. She is a forensic investigator, I think, or something. She works for the cops. She's kind of a nerd and has that like, oh, Peter Parker doesn't even notice me thing going on in the beginning of these books, but they do get together and have a relationship that's fine. It's not my favorite Spider-Man relationship, but it's something. And it's interesting because it is a very stable, like, relationship. They're living together. Is it the most interesting Spider relationship? Not really. I don't think very many people are humongous fans of Carly Cooper, but that character could totally be who Sadie Sink is playing. And like, Peter Parker, Tom Holland just wakes up one day in bed with her and we're like, who is this? And she's just a cop who, works with Spider-Man. This could also be just regular Mary Jane, right? I think Sadie Sink could be playing Mary Jane as Jackpot, like a simplified version of like kind of the Jackpot we have now, but in the original Jackpot story. But she also could just be Mary Jane, a model that Peter is into, who reminds him of someone that he can't quite place. Now, the pros and cons of this are obviously the pro is she's redhead and kind of looks like Mary Jane. And the con is it would feel weird. This would have to be something I think Doom would have to do on his own. He would have to make this character to pacify Spider-Man. I would almost say, like, we would have to find out that she is the devil or something, or like chameleon, because I think if that turns out to be what Peter Parker imagined or like created in his fantasy version of his life. That's weird. You just bring regular Mary Jane. You bring Zendaya back for that. Some other characters introduced in this book besides, like, there's some villains. There's a villain named Freak who's weird as hell. He does drugs and does super drugs. Don't look up Freak. But there is another villain that's introduced in this book that I think people would love to see and would make complete sense here. Is Mr. Negative is introduced around this time, and many people recognize him from the game. Martin Lee, the owner of Feast, a homeless shelter that Aunt May works at, who his evil half is Mr. Negative. He's trying to use magic and demons and stuff to take over whatever. I don't really remember. He's like a gang of demon guys. But like, he has stayed around. But like Menace and Overdrive, some of the other guys that show up in Brand New Day, like, they don't hang around for a while. Mr. Negative did. He has a lot of staying power. And if we want to set up like a street level antagonist that Spider-Man has to fight while he figures out like what's going on, what's wrong with reality, Mr. Negative would be perfect for that. But those are the main characters for Brand New Day. I really could see a world where Sadie Sink is playing Mary Jane as Jackpot, a superhero with strength and speed or whatever. The only problem with that here is like, I don't think Zendaya ever said like the word jackpot to Tom Holland, so like it wouldn't really matter. It wouldn't be like, oh, jackpot, her favorite word. I could also see a world where Sadie Sink is playing just like regular woman, Carly Cooper, potentially a cop or someone trained to be a cop or forensic detective or whatever she is. But I want to talk about one other character, because when Daniel Weston Creighton, who is directing this movie, who directed Shang-Chi, when he started talking about this at CinemaCon, he referenced a very specific Spider-Man book as a book that I believe his son saw for the first time. Was like, Spider-Man. And it's a book called Spider-Man Most Wanted. It's an arc that isn't very important. I don't think many people would say it's like the best Spider-Man arc. It's an interesting arc to bring up at all, unless you're trying to throw something out there that I think you totally could, which is, there's a character that shows up in Most Wanted who is a redhead, who we have not seen before, who I didn't even know existed until I heard them talking about this, but you kind of could introduce in one of these like everything's different stories. And that is a character named Teresa Parker, who is Peter Parker's secret sister, who's a spy. Now we're getting into the Peter Parker's parents are spies side of things, and I don't like that. I don't think many people think that's good. Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a good example of just like, what's the point? But if Peter Parker, and let's say he's 18 still, wakes up in Aunt May's apartment and May is there and he's like, oh, everything's cool, May's there, and then a sister comes out and is like, I'm your sister, but then the sister's like, but also I'm part of some weird resistance for Dr. Doom and I have to get you out of here. And this movie turns into kind of an oddball, you know, brother and sister adventure. But Sadie Sink would be a very good Teresa Parker. Do I think they should do that? Probably not. But I think it's possible. And the fact that Daniel Weston Creighton brought up a comic that contains Teresa Parker, I think is very interesting, regardless of whether, you know, that ends up being in this movie. But in conclusion, I don't think Brand New Day is definitely going to be about like Spider-Man wakes up in a new reality and things are different and he's got all kinds of different friends and maybe characters that used to be dead are back. Right? I don't think we're getting that, even though that is what the comics were. But I do think there's an interesting opportunity to introduce some characters that I think could be played by Sadie Sink, and other characters like Mr. Negative that are just interesting and people have always wanted to see that do come from Brand New Day. And by using Brand New Day as a reference point for what this movie could be, I could see something that would be very cool and would only work between Doomsday and Secret Wars. That's very important. And you know what else is very important? Nebula. It is a subscription streaming service that I helped to create with a bunch of my other YouTube friends. People you definitely know if you like my channel, like Patrick Willems, Captain Midnight, Big Joel, H Bomber Guy, Princess Weeks, and a bunch of others. Go to the culture tab and just poke around. You will find someone you already love. And for my Nando V Movies and Nando Cut videos, the entire Nando Cinematic Universe, they all go up early on Nebula. The Nando V Movies videos are usually a week early. The Nando Cut videos are usually closer to a day or so. But when it comes to a movie review, that can mean the difference between me recommending you immediately see a movie like Deadpool and Wolverine, or me warning you that you immediately see a movie like Madam Web. Either way, see Madam Web. Madam Web's great. Also, if you've seen these ads in the past, you've definitely seen me talk about Abolish Everything, a new show that was coming to Nebula. Well, they recorded it, and it came to Nebula, and it's great. It is so funny. I had such a good time watching it. Check out the trailer online, and then definitely go watch an episode. I don't know if you guys are like me, but this is the kind of thing I could watch full seasons of. You can also download videos to the Nebula app and watch them wherever you want. And we're adding new creators every day. We have guest passes. It's really incredible. And speaking of incredible, Nebula is already a steal at $60 a year, $5 a month. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut, you can get a year of Nebula for $36. That is $3 a month. It's an incredible deal. Again, go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut. You're going to love it.